Hello and welcome to episode 25. Is it 25?
25.
25. Yeah, by
Woohoo!
golly. Man, we're all pros at this,
They
man.
said we couldn't make it.
That's right. They said we couldn't make it. I don't know who they were, and I don't know when they said it. I never heard it, but hey, that always motivates you. Nobody said we could do this. Well,
That's
nobody
right.
knew we were doing this. That's fine. Nobody said that we could do this.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Here we are, one Cardinal, one cup, and one beer. And before we get rolling here, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, contact us through one card, one cup, one beer at gmail.com. If you are listening to this on one of our podcasts, you're not watching the broadcast, the face or the YouTube channel. If you're listening to us and you want to leave a comment on our podcast, leave a comment. I'm going to pull one of those out and read it to you. That's just another way you can contact us. Subscribe to our YouTube page by clicking on the icon at the bottom right-hand corner, or you can go to YouTube and just type in one Cardinal, one cup, and one beer. Will pop up and you could subscribe. Because I know not everybody watches this on a device that has the icon, as I tried to explain so ineloquently last week. Support us through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com, search one Cardinal, one cup, and one beer, and you can support our efforts here. Those efforts are greatly appreciated. And do want to let you know that we are having a monthly trivia. The first 2 months, we kind of did it as a trial, me and JJ. JJ won the first one, I won the second one. So we got the yin and the yang, right with the
That's
universe.
right.
Maxwell does the hosting and he puts together the puzzle. And like I said last week, as you can see, we are very beatable. So if you would like to join us in a game of trivia, let us know. Get a hold of JJ, get a hold of me. You can email, you can leave a comment somewhere, you can do smoke signals, however you want to get a hold of us. Say, hey, I'd like to be a contestant. In April, we will have our first contestant that was going to go against me and JJ, Mr. Dan Rutledge. And Dan, I am here to kick your explicit. Okay, that's what I'm. That's
You're
what I'm
going
here.
down, Rutledge. You're going
Yeah,
down.
yeah. So anyway, and then Dan will probably beat us like 3,000 to nothing to nothing. So,
That's the way it goes.
but trash talking. That the youngsters trash talk, and now we've kind of adopted that
I'm not real
too.
good at it.
Yeah. I do want to address a few things. People who've gotten a hold of us. Some of the stuff when I get something on like a comment or an email, some of the stuff I can just answer, and it's really nothing that needs to broadcast. But Jeremy asked something that I think me and JJ should do because I think this would be cool. Maybe we can do it next week. And he asks, has any Cardinal ever moved on to TV or movies? And that got me thinking we could do like a segment next week. You can put down like Cardinals who've been in movies and TV shows, and I could do like Cubs. I do remember like McGuire was in an episode of something after he hit the 70 home run. So I thought that would be kind of cool, kind of fun. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's great. I look forward to that. That'll be fun. I can think of a couple off the top of my head.
Okay. So Jeremy, if you're listening, just know that we will be doing that next week. And if Jeremy's not listening, I'll send him a message and say, hey, we're going to do this. Okay. And um, Barry asked this, will you ever do a remote? So I'm gonna give that question to JJ right now because we were just addressing this before the show started.
We are trying to get a remote started, and I would like to go to, if I'm invited, to show up to people's like man caves, their baseball rooms, and interview them. They'll be on the show and take a little tour of their man caves. And I've got a really good friend, and I tell you what, it's gonna be tough to top this one. A good friend of mine, Tony Pruno, in parts unknown. I don't want to advertise where he's from because this man
He
cave.
sounds like a heel wrestler from parts unknown.
That's right. That's right, with the Oriental Spike. And anyway, Tony's a great guy. We're going to try to get it set up and do a remote there sooner than later. And You think I have some items. This guy is the king. And it's gonna be fun to go in there and show off his room. And what I like too is to see how people display things. Sometimes people come up with some real creative ideas. And this room, I won't say nothing else, but I got about 2 people lined up, and we're gonna go to man caves and just take a look. So it's like what is that? MTV had a show where they went my cribs or something.
Cribs, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be baseball cribs is what we're gonna be doing. And try to do that every once in a while. So
yeah, I like the way people display things too, like the artistic vision that I had to display this magnet right here. Who could have done that but a true artist? I mean, really.
It's symmetrical.
Hey JJ, what's going on in Cardinal Nation?
There is so much going on. Springtime, spring training's about half over. We got the World Baseball Classic going on, but right now there is a Cardinal that has hit the newest heights in popularity, and it's our outfielder Lars Newbar, who's playing for Japan. They absolutely love him. He's playing great, and I don't want to rain on your parade, Vince. I know you're already measuring Ohtani for a Cub uniform, but him and Lars have become pretty good buddies. And every picture I see, they're always got their arms around each other and laughing. And I seen Ohtani doing the pepper mill, the Lars Newbar pepper mill when you got a rally going. So I'm just not so fast, Cub fans, not so fast.
Do you really think the Cardinals are going to pay 45 to 50 grand a year?
Well, he may give us a nice, a nice city discount. Maybe, maybe I don't know. No, I don't think he's going to come here, but there's always a possibility. You can always dream. You can dream, kids. You can dream. Well, Lars has done so good, and the Japanese, I think they're the team to beat in this World Baseball Classic because their pitching staff
and challenge yet. They're not in the strongest pool, but they've just blown through.
They look good, and their pitching might be the toughest pitching because like the Americans, and I love Waino and I love Michaelis, but they're not 2 of the best 5 starting pitchers in baseball. And but they went out there, they're doing it. I'm proud of them. Lance Lynn pitched a real good game the other night. We'll get on the World Baseball Classic, but we don't have Clayton Kershaw, or I could go on and on with some of the players.
Yeah, that's the with the American team, heavy on offense, pitching, a lot of pitch. I don't want Cardinal fans to think that I am criticizing Wainwright or Michaelis or anybody like that, but we don't have the studs pitching for us. We have some good pitchers, but when we run into Mexico hit our pitching pretty good. So
sure did.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead. I'm this is your time. I'm raining on.
No. This is what it's about. This is what I like when we kind of go on something there. But Lars is hitting 429 right now, and I know it's exhibition, and you're playing for your country, and there is a sense of excitement. That Mexico United States game was off the charts. That was like a playoff game. It had that kind of energy and everything, and there was a lot of good nature ribbing in the crowd. It looked like the Mexican fans had the sombreros and the flags, and the Americans were dressed like Captain America and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. It just seemed like it was a good time. It would have been fun to be out there. And Ohtani, I never seen anything like this, Vince. And since I'm talking about Lars and the Japanese team, Ohtani's a rock star. He's like Elvis over there. I don't know who, but he's as big as you can get. When he hit a home run, I never seen this before. The fan who caught it held it and took a picture, and they passed it around, and the other fans held it and took pictures, selfies with it, and they just passed it around, and then they handed it back to the fan that caught it. Vince, I think that's beautiful. But what would happen in Philadelphia? What would happen in Philadelphia?
Yeah. Hey, give me that ball back. He didn't get this ball back. He gave it to me. How would you like me to punch in your Philly cheesesteak now? Yeah.
There would have been bloodshed. So I admire that. I don't know. That's just respect. How they treat each other. Yeah, respect. That's a great word right there. Well, the Cardinals, we're getting to look at a lot of the players. We're playing pretty good. It's nice to get some wins. We're winning 2, losing 1 kind of thing. And some of the players, Jordan Walker, we had a little scare. He had a shoulder discomfort, set out a few games. He was back Tuesday. They're just taking precautions, but he is just hitting a cover off the ball, leading the team in most categories this spring. Donovan, 4 home runs. I know they don't mean anything. Pitchers are working on things. You're facing a lot of minor leaguers, but he's got 4 home runs, and that's good to see, because really that's not really expected from him. And that's a nice, if he can, that'd be part of his game. That'd be wonderful. Win, our shortstop. We just heard today that DeYoung suffered some sort of injury, and it's really going to set him back. And really, I think the plan was Edman and DeYoung this year win one more year in the minors, or in middle of May. What is that? May, he could come up and we still get that year extra on the contract kind of thing. They still do that. But if he's playing so good, I don't know what we're going to do. So I don't think you can keep him down on the farm for much longer, but he is playing incredible defense and actually hitting a 348 clip this spring. And well, really fast.
The way Young played last year, I don't know how you can say, well, I'm sorry you had a killer spring, but we have this established shortstop who couldn't hit 200 last year, who's been injured, but we're giving him the job. That would grate on me. That's something that I've seen done by the Cubs, and I don't agree with it.
Matt Carpenter, who I love, who had a 10-year career here, and he holds the doubles record for the Cardinals in the season. He let's be honest, the last 3 years, especially with that shift, he just hit and shift every time and didn't do very well at all. And I'm glad he's back and having a good career, and he's with the Padres this year. And I hope he does well, except against us and the Cubs, of course. I say that because you're here. If you weren't in earshot, I may not mention the Cubs, but
I get it.
Gomez is really looking good, and he's lost a lot of weight, and he's a little faster than I thought. I seen him leg out some infield hits, and this kid can hit. Not great defensively, but like I said, there's 7 spots, and they're probably going to take 4 or 5 outfielders. So he's got a good shot at making the team. He led the minors in home runs last year. Guys that are kind of struggling a little bit. Dylan Carlson, he's been up 2 years, almost 2 full years now, and this is the year to shine. And so far in spring training, it looks like he's struggling a little bit. Gorman, same thing. He's striking out too much, 10 strikeouts and only like 25 at bats. He can't be doing that. Kisner is fighting for his job, and you got Herrera and this other kid. I can't remember the other kid's name, but they got some catchers coming, and it's not necessarily written in stone that he's going to be the backup catcher. And Herrera is hitting way better than Kisner in the spring. So we'll see. But that's kind of exciting right there. Oh, and by the way, the Springfield Cardinals are going to have a Lars Newbar Day at the ballpark. And of course, it's a bobblehead with him doing the pepper grinder. I thought I'd just throw that out there. I keep an eye on all that kind of stuff. On the pitching side of things, Jordan Montgomery has struggled. He's had 2 starts, and his ERA is a cool 7.71 this spring. It's spring. He's working on stuff. But Jack Flaherty is looking like his old self. He's pitched out a few jams, done very well. Wolford looked like he might be the 5th starter. He could be the 5th starter, or a long reliever. He's so far he's pitched 9 innings and gave up 1 run, and he's looked good in the starts. Steven Matz, who was hurt last year, looking pretty good, and Hudson has came in and pretty good. And I'm a big fan of this kid we got out of the International League, Wilkin Rodriguez. He throws in the high 90s, and he's looked pretty good. And there's a good chance he might make the team this year. That's kind of it on the spring training items. But we also, the media guide has come out, and every year they have kind of a theme to it. Last year, everything was Waino and Yachty. This year, they've got featuring 3 players, and I'm assuming this will be on the scorecard and the pocket schedule too, but it's a Goldschmidt, Arenado, and Rowland, and they'll have each of their awards right beside their picture of them in action. Like, of course, Arenado fielding, and I'll have his platinum glove next to him, the Goldschmidt with the MVP, and then the Rowland with the Hall of Fame little insignia on it. It looks really good. It's a red backdrop with them in their white Cardinal outfits. That looks pretty good. And also, I was going to mention this in the news. Uh, the St. Louis Browns at the City Museum, which is just there's a museum real close to Busch Stadium. They're having an exhibit on the St. Louis Browns. It is called Rounding the Bases, and it's going to be there from March 31st to October 1st. And from what I've seen, a lot of great artifacts from that era of baseball and all the St. Louis Browns things. And I think I'm going to go eventually over this summer while it's up there. And Mr. Wheatley is a big part of that too. And they're having a big ribbon cutting ceremony, and the people that are in the St. Louis Brown Historical Society, they're having a big gala there, the opening night of that. So that's coming up. And Vince, there seems to be, this is the last thing I want to touch on. There seems to be a new thing in baseball that's going on where if a team believes in a young player, they skip all the arbitration years and give him like a 7-8 year contract out of the gate. And the Arizona Diamondbacks, we talked about this kid last week, Corbin Carroll, the fastest player in baseball. He only played 23 games last year. They just gave him an 8-year, $111 million contract and wrapped him up for a good while. Now, if he becomes the player they think he will be, that's a great deal for Arizona, but that's a big chance he could get hurt. He may not develop into the player they think, but the Cardinals have done that on a lower scale with, I think it was Donovan Osborne, Matt Carpenter, and Paul DeYoung, and I think Carlos Martinez as well. We've done it with a few players, and it's turned out okay. But Julio Rodriguez, the center fielder of the Mariners, big years, big money. Wandy Franco from Tampa Bay, that kid will never want for money again. And the Atlanta Braves have wrapped up like 8 of their players. They're young players.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have some core. I think that's the way to go. I mean, unless you're the Mets, the Yankees, and the Red Sox and the Dodgers, teams like us, that may be what we have to do if we have a blue chipper and want to hang on to him for a good section of his career, is to sign him to a long-term and up the money so the player, is rewarded as well in a short time. But that'd be great. So Vince, that's my Cardinal news and a few little things on baseball as well right there.
Well, I think that's a good business model for big market teams too. If you're developing in the minor leagues, and let's say that you've got 4 that you feel like these are really good players, when they get to the point where they're going to make the roster, I would try to extend all of them for like the first 8 years, pay them a nice contract. Let's say you miss on 2 of them. Is that really that different than what most teams miss on in free agents? Not really.
That's true.
And you're not going to be giving out the $30 million a year contracts to these people, but it's a good investment for a young 20-year-old to say, I will extend out to about age 28 or 29. That'll be the first time, the only time I'll really need to explore free agency, probably get huge money then. But if something happens to me in these first few years, I'm set for life. I just think it's a great business model, but you have to make sure that you really think this person is going to hit. And I don't mean hit, I mean hit on their potential. So in Cub news, it's time for the 5th starter competition.
Oh, I love the 5th starter competition.
Adrian Sampson pitched again this week. And remember, his ERA was 22 last week, and it has dropped significantly to 14.04. So he did not pitch good. He just didn't pitch as bad in this third outing. He still gave up 2 home runs. He has pitched 8 1/3 innings this spring. He's given up 13 runs. All 13 have been earned. He has given up 8 home runs. He has walked 3 and struck out 6. To give up 8 home runs in 3 short outings, there's got to be something mechanically wrong or physically wrong. Some of his pitches in his outing, was it 2 days ago? I think it was Monday. Some of his pitches, okay, that looked pretty good. But then, there's the 420-foot bomb that's hit off of him. And you can't just, this is a guy that gave up 10 home runs last year, and he's given up 8 and 3 in less than 9 innings of play. There's got to be something wrong. There is no way they're taking this guy north with him, especially when he's got options left. And he's pitching so bad, they're not going to get rid of him. They're just going to probably um, send him to Iowa, maybe even to Double-A. Who knows? Um, so he's still in third place, and nothing has changed since last week. Javier Assad is still in second. Okay. Javier Assad in 2 spring training outings and his beautiful 3-inning outing against Team USA, where he completely shut down that lineup. 3 innings pitched, 1 hit, no runs. Javier Assad, with those 3 outings, has a 0.00 ERA. He has pitched 7 innings and given up 1 hit.
Wow.
He's walked 1 and struck out 4. But I am still giving the edge to Hayden Wesneski, who also has no ERA yet. An 8 and 2/3 innings. Excuse me. He's given up 5 hits, 1 run. It was unearned. Walked 2, struck out 11.
Ooh.
His last outing, I think it was Sunday, 4 perfect innings. So what I like about Wesneski, and if you saw Assad pitch against Team USA, you saw a really good pitcher. I mean, that wasn't a fluke. And he's put 3 miles an hour on his fastball from last year to this year. I've mentioned this about 4 or 5 times over the winter and spring. The Cubs have a pitching lab, and it works. It's patterned after what the Astros do, what the Dodgers do, and they have, I don't know, Cleveland. I know they've had a lot of personnel come in from Cleveland, and Cleveland's always cranked out the pitching. So the Cubs have replicated what other teams who have pitch labs do to develop young pitching, and it's so cool to watch it work. Players are throwing harder. Pitchers are throwing harder. Pitchers are throwing a lot more cutters than they ever thrown before. And one of the things that they're focusing on this year is teaching that sweeping slider that Wesneski learned in the Yankees. Tyone, who's come from the Yankees, he didn't have time to learn it last year or 2 years ago because of injury. So he is actually learning how to throw it in the Cub camp, but it's kind of a Yankee pitching thing that has been carried over to the Cubs. And you can just see it. All these players, from the single-A pitchers that they have brought up that I've watched pitch in spring training all the way up to the major leaguers, they're all taking advantage of the instruction of the pitch lab. And that's what has me and a lot of other Cub fans excited. We've never seen pitching like this being developed in our system. And it's just awesome to see. Seiya Suzuki is this weekend, barring another setback, is resuming light baseball drills this weekend. He's probably not going to be opening day, which is what, 15 days away. So
15 days away.
But he's not going to be out too long if he's resuming his light baseball drills. He has no pain, a little bit of tightness, so that's good. There's been a lot of words on Ian Happ, being he is going to be the premier offensive player in the free agency after this year. And his value has went up to where it is now, they're saying he's up to about 20 million a year. And they're looking at 5-6 years, 20 million, because his value is just going up because he's the only hitting star that's really prominent free agency after this year. Are the Cubs going to extend him? I think they're going to make a competitive offer. I hope they make a competitive offer. If I'm Ian Happ, I reject it. I would gamble that I don't get hurt. I would gamble on a good season, and I would put myself on the open market and get some clubs in a bidding war. Uh, he's, I wouldn't call him an upper echelon player, but he's very, very good. He's right below that. He's not going to hit 300. He's not going to have a 400 on base percentage. He's not going to hit 40 home runs. But he does everything well. He fields well. He won a gold glove. He runs well. He can steal bases. He doesn't play stupid. He'll go first to third when he needs to go first to third, and he's not going to get thrown out at third base. I just like what he does very well, and I think he's worth 20 million a year. I think the Cubs will probably start something like 5 years, 17 million. And you know, the thing that is even if we lose him, we've got so many outfield prospects that are getting so close to the majors. PCA, Brennan Davis, um, Nelson Velasquez, who played for us last year, is playing with the Dominican team that right now in the World Baseball Classic. He didn't have a great year last year, but he's shown some flashes. So if we lose him, probably not the worst thing in the world. We will survive, but I'd really like to see him there in Chicago for a few more years. I was just playing around, looking at what I think the opening day starters are going to be, and I kind of, if the season started tonight, we'd see Hosmer at first, Horner at second. Horner, by the way, went deep yesterday, first spring training home run. And for a guy who's not going to hit, but anywhere from 8 to 12 home runs, yeah, I'm fine with that. Third base, we're going to probably start with Madrigal, shortstop Swanson, left field will be Happ, center field Bellinger, who's looked pretty good at the plate. Right field, Mancini, who has looked excellent at the plate. DH will be Wisdom. Wisdom, since he's come back from his groin issues, has looked very good at the plate. So happy with that. And of course, Stroman's going to start barring injury. We're not going to see Suzuki for the first few days, maybe week, 2 weeks of the season. But when he's in there, it's going to be, Mancini doing a lot of DHing. Say is going to be in right field on an everyday basis, and Wisdom. He'll be worked in there at first base sometimes, right field sometimes, third base sometimes. So it's going to be a little bit different when Suzuki gets back and running at full strength. Max had his 21st birthday, and one of the things I got him was a deck of playing cards. And in a deck of playing cards, there are 52 cards. And each one of the playing cards had a Cub legend on them.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. And there were some legends on there, and there were some people who was like, okay, I you're on there. Why are you on there? I'm trying to think of, maybe, gosh, who were some of the players that there's a few players I just thought, really? Yeah. Well, first of all, Cap Anson's on there. Cap Anson, who was a known racist.
Well, yeah.
He's got a card, but he's one of the ones who fought to keep the game lily white. And then there's like Jose Cardinal,
Jose Cardinal. Okay.
No,
he flipped me off once at a game.
Yeah, well, you deserved it.
I did. We were smart mouth kids.
Yeah. Jody Davis was on there. There was some decent players, but there Keith Moreland, so there was no Sammy.
No Sammy. Oh, that's not right.
I'm just fed up with this. Keep him out of the Hall of Fame. I don't have a problem with that because without steroids, he's not a Hall of Famer. Right. He's not. I mean, he was a skinny kid who had speed. He had good bat speed. Once he got juiced up on the steroids, that's when he became Sammy. But by golly, this thing where we can't have him back to throw out a first pitch, to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," to just wave at the fans. We can't do that till he does something to make some kind of amends. And to keep him off of a 52 card legend, Bill Madlock was on there. By the way, they did not have Dave Kingman either, and that pissed me off. But to not have Sammy on there, I'm thinking, come on, man.
Yeah.
I don't like him. His biggest sin to me was he quit on the team. You don't leave during the season. I don't care if it's the last day you show up and your name's not in the lineup, so you say, well, you don't say bye, you just disappear. You don't do that. In the real world, if you did that at a job, you would be fired.
Yeah.
And I guess they did fire him. They got rid of him, but okay, 25 years ago, he's still got his fans. Geez, put him on the dadgum cards or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have him on the cards. He was I tell you what, he was an attraction. I
He
know
was.
him and
He
McGuire
made
that
the
year.
Cubs a lot of money. He made baseball a lot of money.
They sure did.
And no other team who has had these steroids people, they've kept them out of the Hall of Fame. Bonds, Clemens, McGuire, you can go down the list.
Kasenko.
Yeah, their teams have not. They've all come to an understanding. Okay, you did this, it was wrong, but come on back. You're part of the history. You can't rewrite history. Just put him on the dadgum card. Just kind of agitated me. Let me ask you this. The Cardinals are on Bally Sports. Bally Sports filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and I keep hearing rumblings that they're going to put them on MLB.com and there's not going to be any blackouts. Have you heard anything?
No, I haven't. I haven't heard anything about that. The only thing I heard was that's one reason we didn't spend much money. They didn't know about how the finances were going to be. But I've seen games on Fox FS1. I've seen games on the old Bally station this spring. They've had some games on there, and MLB. I've seen some games on there too.
Well, this has been. I've never had this before. The spring training that is on MLB.TV, they're actually showing the Cardinal spring training games too. So I'm thinking, I think Major League Baseball is doing the right thing to say, hey, this is what you signed up for, and it's falling apart. We will go ahead and stream the games on MLB.TV and take out the blackout. I read an article where the Texas Rangers, they're not even sure they're going to be able to broadcast anything. I mean, it's pretty bad.
Oh man.
But that's why so many teams have went to their own, like the Yankees with Yes, the Cubs have Marquee. There's quite a few teams that do their own thing so they can have control over it. The only thing they can't control are the blackouts. And if Major League Baseball is going to step in and say, we're going to stream everything and take out the blackouts, I think that's just going to be for the good of the game.
You mentioned that. Oh man, back maybe around October, November, you were talking about how that fans can't watch the games. And when we were kids, WTBS and WOR and WGN, and that's how a lot of people fell in love with a lot of those three teams. Atlanta just grew; their audience just grew. Cubs always had great fans, but I know the Braves there for a while, they weren't very good and they struggled. But when WTBS came around, I watched the Braves almost every night when they were on. Yeah, it'd be great for the young folks to see them and fall in love with the game. I know they had a thing the other day. It was something like Area Code Day, and the Cardinals for a while had tickets for $3.14.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And that's great because it's tough to go to a ball game with $20 parking and $9 hot dogs. And so that's cool. They're doing stuff like that for the fans.
Wait till they have a zip code day and I have to spend $63,007 for a ticket. Yes.
You better be on the field with that kind of money. That's setting on the bench.
But JJ had a great idea that we do the Mount Rushmore of our team's closers. I know two of these are going to overlap, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Why don't you go first and just do your four, then I'll do my four, being we know the two of ours are going to overlap, but you're going to have different reasons than I have for having them on the Mount Rushmore. So who do you got?
Well, first of all, I look back and I thought the closer was a fairly new thing, especially like in the 60s. It seems like they had old starters and they'd kind of transition them to the bullpen because back in the old days, starters tried to go the full game. And now, pitchers, you might get 6 innings out of them. But I look back and there was in 1905, McGraw from the New York Giants actually had a reliever that he used, and he was like the first one to do it. And even back as far as 1905, there were relievers in the game, and it just seemed like in the 60s it became more of a thing. So it is fairly new. And the Cardinals' top 10, it was actually the top 3 were easy. 4, I wanted to put somebody else in there, but when I looked at the stats, it was pretty easy. So in no particular order, number 1, Jason Isringhausen. And he came up through the Mets. I remember they had like 3 young pitchers. They thought, oh, this is going to be our pitching staff for
That
years
was
to come.
Isringhausen, Pulsifer, and Wilson.
I forgot about Wilson. I knew the middle one, but I couldn't remember the last one. Yeah, they had 3, and he never quite. He was okay. Then he goes out to Oakland, and they make him the closer, and he becomes really top notch. And then he followed LaRusso over, and he becomes our closer. He pitched for the Cardinals from 2002 to 2008, so 7 years. After he leaves St. Louis, he pitches for a few more teams. He's from your neck of the woods, Brighton, Illinois.
Brighton, Illinois, yes.
Yeah, Illinois fella. He actually, when he left Oakland, he took less money to come to St. Louis. And, we get by. I don't know how we get by with that, but St. Louis never usually, we're like the number 2. That's what bugs a lot of Cardinal fans. They say, oh, we could have got this guy, but we were the second best deal for him, But he took the second best deal that time because the Texas Rangers offered him more money. But he came to St. Louis, 217 saves, the all-time Cardinal record in saves. He had a 2.98 ERA, and he made an All-Star game. He pitched in the 04 World Series, the 05 All-Star game, and he also was a champion on the 06 team. And I think he was hurt that year, some of it. But he had a nice career here, all-time save leader. He had 401 relief appearances, which is 6th most in St. Louis Cardinal history. So I just put him number 1 because he is number 1 in saves for the Cardinals. The next player is one of those overlappers. And I'll be honest. Well, first of all, it's Bruce Sutter. And Bruce Sutter, I will always think of as a Cub. I love him. I love the years here, but he came up as a Cub. And I remember when I kind of first discovered him, we just couldn't hit him. That split-fingered fastball would just drop off the plate. And I remember Ted Simmons would try to creep up in the batter's box so he could catch it before it would duck down. And he was just fouling them off. And he just had some great years for both of our teams. Pitched here from 81 to 84. And his nickname in St. Louis was Old Engine 42. He was number 42. He's on that left field wall out there at Busch Stadium now. And Whitey Herzog said of him, when I have Bruce Sutter in my bullpen, I only have to manage 7 innings. Then I bring in Bruce Sutter and the game's pretty much over. And that is so true. Let's see. Oh, the memory I have more than anything is the final out of the 82 World Series. There was a 10 pitch at bat to Gorman Thomas, and I don't think he threw the split finger. The final pitch was a regular fastball. I think Gorman went a little lower expecting the split finger, and he got the strikeout on him. And of course, him and Darryl Porter celebrate, and the rest is history. And as a Cardinal fan, that was the first World Series I ever got to see. And 3 out of the 4 years he was in St. Louis, he finished in the top 10 in the MVP voting, and he was top 5 in the Cy Young Award voting in those years. 127 saves. His ERA was 2.72, and he pitched 396.2 innings and 259 strikeouts. And he went in the Hall of Fame in 2006, and he did go in as a Cardinal, and I feel honored that he did it as a Cardinal because it get us world championship here. But he pitched actually more years with the Cubbies, and it was the Cubs, Cardinals, and Braves, and then he got hurt, and his career was over. So that's number 2. So I got Isringhausen, and I got Mr. Bruce Sutter. And I won't go too much in this guy, but this is the other overlapper, Mr. Big Lee Smith from Louisiana. He'd come in and out of bullpen and just throw smoke. He played on from 90 to 93, and that's known to me as the Joe Torre years. And this was after Augie Busch had passed away, and we just pretty much went with a bunch of the guys that came up out of our minor leagues, and with a few older veterans sprinkled in there. And so Lee, he's 3rd all-time in saves with 478. He got 160 of those saves in St. Louis and had 3 all-star appearances. And, back in them days, still to this day, every team gets 1 all-star guy. Well, Lee Smith was our all-star guy during those years. He had 2-time finisher in the top 5 for the Cy Young, 3 consecutive 40 save wins with the Cardinals. They leaned on him heavy, and I tell you what, he had a long career. He was very durable, and a 3-time All-Star here in St. Louis. So Big Lee Smith, love that guy.
Now, was it what he went from Chicago to Boston? I know he didn't do this in Chicago. I don't know if it started in Boston or St. Louis, that he would take a nap in the trainer's room during the game. And then, yeah, then they would get him up like the 7th inning, wake him up, and he'd go to the bullpen and get ready and saunter in. And that would not happen today. I mean, after the beer and chicken thing in Boston,
oh
yeah,
yes, that's right.
That stuff wouldn't float today, but that's how Lee did his business. I know he was doing it in St. Louis. I don't think he did it in Chicago, because with Chicago, he wasn't a 1 inning pitcher. You know, sometimes he'd pitch like a two and a half inning for the save. But I think by the time he got to St. Louis, he was a 1 inning pitcher and had this routine of taking a nap. And
so. I never heard. I do know. I'm pretty sure. I'm 99% sure that when he was in Boston, we traded Tom Bernansky up there, the outfielder.
Oh yeah,
and that's who we got. We got Lee back for him because we needed a reliever. But man, great memories, those 3 guys right there. So my last guy. Now, the one thing is all 3 of these guys I've mentioned have come from other teams, and every team does that. I kind of like it when a guy spends his whole career with a team, but that just doesn't happen very often. But this is one of our homegrown relievers. He was Rookie of the Year, Todd Worrell. Todd Worrell was in the mid-'80s. He's the 4th on that all-time on my Mount Rushmore of Cardinal closers or relievers, just in general. He played 85 to 89, and then he came back in 92. He was Rookie of the Year in 1986. And the Cardinals don't have a whole lot of Rookie of the Years. I remember 85, it was Vince Coleman. 86, it was Todd Worrell. And then we didn't have another one until Albert Pujols. So we don't have very many Rookie of the Years in our team history. We've got a few.
Jordan Walker.
Yeah, well, you know what? I feel like I'm jinxing. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy. Let's hope. He's 4th on the Vegas odds for the Rookie of the Year. So maybe they'll give him a chip on the shoulder. He'll do like a Tom Brady thing and, show everybody what they missed out on. 129 saves in St. Louis, 3rd in St. Louis Cardinal history, a 1-time All-Star, an ERA of 2.56. And okay, so I talked about my memory of Bruce Sutter. And this is the memory I have of Todd Worrell, but it was the 85 World Series where he went to cover first base and Jack Clark threw the ball over to him. And if you see the film or the picture, Worrell caught the ball. The guy's out, but Don Dinkinger, the devil himself.
George Order was safe by a mile. What are you talking about?
And it's one play, but you know how it is. Moises Alou that over there, and he didn't get the foul ball, and then all of a sudden the game starts unraveling. That is what happened to us in '85. For all you young fans out there that missed out on it, that play, everybody's freaking out. We couldn't believe it, and all of a sudden, here comes the Royals. Well, we still had Game 7, and then the wheels came off. They just blew our doors off in that Game 7.
My favorite quote was Herzog. This is when Andujar blew up in Game 7, and they pulled him. So Herzog goes up there and gets in Dingers behind the plate at this time. And Herzog says, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here tonight. Dinkinger, without missing a beat, said, if your team wasn't batting 185, we wouldn't be here tonight. Dinkinger has admitted he's blown the call. To his credit, he didn't do the Eric Gregg, C.B. Buckner, Angel Martinez thing that I've never made a bad call. He has owned up to it. He has felt bad about it,
and that's baseball. And I looking back, I wanted that win so bad, but that's just how it goes. If you don't like the outcome, play better. And I hated it. That's what we think of in that year. But Vince, every time I go to Kansas City to see a game, I usually go when the Cardinals are playing. They play the highlights of them jumping up and down and winning 85. And until they won that other World Series, that's all they had to hang their hat on, that and Bo Jackson. And oh my gosh, I had to watch it every time. But now they won another one, so at least they got that. But I've got my list of the top 10 Cardinal relievers, and then I'll be finished with this part. But it's Isringhausen, 217, Lee Smith, 160, Worrell, 129, Bruce Sutter, 127. And then to round it out, Trevor Rosenthal, 121, Ryan Franklin, 84, Dennis Eckersley, who pitched his last 2 years here, love the Eck, 66, Lindy McDaniel, way back in the 60s, 64, oh, yeah. And Joe Horner was 60. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a couple other guys. And we've had so many Cardinal Cub players that played for both teams, but Jason Mott with 54, and a personal favorite of mine, just a colorful character that we've probably mentioned 4 different episodes on here, but Al Hrabowski. Al Hrabowski had 59, and he had 2 incredible years with the Cardinals. So my Mount Rushmore, Isringhausen, and no particular order either. Isringhausen, Lee Smith, Bruce Sutter, and Todd Worrell right there on that mountaintop. And it was a privilege watching those guys pitch every third day, every other day for all those years.
Okay. When I was thinking about who you would pick, because, he's going to pick Sutter and Lee Smith, of course. And then, of course, Isringhausen being he's, the saves leader. I thought your fourth one was going to be Rosenthal. Yeah. I liked Worrell. Worrell was hittable because he never threw inside. And Rosenthal just had that grit where he'd knock you down.
Yeah.
Worrell that's one of the reasons why he has an ERA that's a little higher than most closers, is because even though he was throwing hard, the players could dig in because he just didn't come inside. So, but either or, Yeah,
there was about 3 years that Worrell would just throw the ball past people, but then once he lost a little of the velocity, he had a nice career, but he wasn't dominating anymore.
Yeah, and I liked Worrell. I thought he was a quality person. This is what I liked. It was a different game then. In the early 90s, when the Cardinals had Pedro Guerrero, who was not the most intelligent baseball player in the world. You didn't do this then, and you still don't do it today. But today it probably wouldn't be met with such harshness. Guerrero, after a game, brought Sammy. This is before Sammy was Sammy. He was just a guy on the Cubs, And so Guerrero, after the game, brought Sammy into the Cardinal locker room, and while Guerrero's finished getting dressed because they were going to go out somewhere. And Worrell, get him out of here. And, he and Guerrero had a war of words. I don't know if it ever got physical, but I do know that happened because I've heard that out of Worrell's own mouth. And I respected him after that. There's something that should be sacred about the other dressing room, and you don't need to be bringing players in there, even if they are your friends. You don't need to be bringing players in there. Wait out in the hall, meet, go out, do whatever you want. Like I said, it's still not done today, but today I don't know if it would be met with such, a threat, basically. So
Fergie and Bob Gibson would have never went for that.
No.
They knock people down. But there's more trades and players move more, and you see them hugging before the game, which is fine, and once the game starts and everything. But you're right, different game back then because you were viewed as the enemy back in those days.
Yeah. And I have 4 on my list. I'm going to start with the obvious ones, the overlapping. I've got Bruce Sutter, pitched for the Cubs from 76 through 80. Bruce Sutter was in Class D ball in Quincy, Illinois, when he learned the split-fingered fastball. And if he never learned that, he probably doesn't get higher than, I think it was still Class D, Class C, Class B, A, or something like that at that time. It was the lowest level of the minors back then. He learned the split-fingered fastball, and things were very different. And split-fingered fastball used to be called a forkball. And what they would do is a forkball was an off-speed pitch. What Suter revolutionized was that he threw it hard. I think Gary Carter was the one who said it's like trying to hit a marble rolling off a table at 95 miles an hour. It wasn't easy to hit. From 76 through 80 with the Cubs, he had 133 saves. He averaged a strikeout an inning with the Cubs. Now he was a different pitcher with the Cardinals. He used that split finger fastball basically and became a ground ball pitcher on the turf with that great defense. With the Cardinals, he didn't even average 6 strikeouts per 9 innings. So his strikeouts were way down after he left the Cubs. With the Cubs, though, he was a 4-time All-Star. He won the Cy Young Award in 1979, back when, well, even still today, it's very difficult for relievers to win the Cy Young Award. But he did win that with the Cubs in 79. And even though we had bad teams then, nobody wanted us to get into the 7th or 8th inning behind because we were bringing in Suter and we could nail the game shut then. So, and he was not the first big time reliever, big time celebrity reliever. That would be Hoyt Wilhelm, who came up in the 50s and still might be pitching today if he's alive. With that knuckleball, he went to the Hall of Fame, but Suter was that very first wave of specialized closers that every team values so much now. And so where Washington is, I have Suter standing there, you know. And then my second one's going to be Lee Smith. Lee Smith actually pitched in 1980 when Suter was on the team. So they did pitch, but at that time, Lee Smith was a starter / long relief man his rookie year. Pitched from 80 to 87 with the Cubs, and he accumulated 180 saves. He averaged 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He was a 2-time All-Star with the Cubs. I'm so glad he's in the Hall of Fame. When he gave up the home run to Garvey in Game 6 of or it was Game 4 because it was only a 5-game series there, blew the game against the Padres in the 84 playoffs. I was just hoping that wasn't going to define his career. I felt bad for the guys sitting there, you know, knowing, oh gosh, we got to come back here tomorrow. Hope it goes better, you know. And I remember a friend of mine after that game, he just had to rub it into me, you know. Yep, Lee Smith is going to have to come up with something else other than a fastball. Now, he did develop a pretty good breaking ball, which was probably his best pitch in his last few years as a closer. As his velocity went down, but I'm so glad he did bounce back from that. But he's my second player on the Mount Rushmore. So our Mount Rushmores would be facing each other. We would have two guys staring each other in the eye. So my third is Randall Kurt Myers, who pitched from 93 to 95 with the Cubs. Randy Myers was a bad egg. In 1990, yes, when he was part of the Nasty Boys with the Reds, they were in spring training in Florida, and they caught a water moccasin. And there's a picture of Myers holding the head. It's a live water moccasin, and Rob Dibble holding the tail. It's like these guys were nuts. Randy Myers, he was still is a black belt in karate. You didn't mess with him. And it was known around the league, you don't mess with him. Not only can he kick your butt, he's crazy. He picks up water moccasins. So even though he only pitched 3 years with the Cubs, he had 112 saves. And in 1993, set the club record of 53 with the Cubs. And in his 3 years with the Cubs, 2 years he was an All-Star. And in 95, when we had a pretty good team, came close to making the playoffs. We were in it till the final week. He was the one who was the glue to that team. So I've always liked Randy Myers. And no matter where he pitched, the Reds, the Cubs, San Diego, can't remember where else he closed. He did a great job. Just a fantastic pitcher. Now, my fourth player would have been Pedro Strop, but Pedro Strop was not a closer. He was a reliever. He was a setup man. Yeah. So I went from there and I started looking at Cubs closers. I even considered for a second Chapman because he did pitch for 2 months for us and we got a World Series out of it. But I
That's
thought,
right.
nah, he's barely there. And then he did give up that game tying home run. Yeah, not quite on the Mount Rushmore. And we had people like Joe Borowski. We had Ryan Dempster, who was a closer for a while and did an adequate job. Uh, but the guy I'm putting on here is my fourth player, is Carlos Marmol. Pitched from
Okay.
06 to 13 with the Cubs, but he only closed from 09 to 012 or to 012, 09 to 12. He accumulated 117 saves. He struck out 11.6 hitters per 9 innings. He was a one-time All-Star. The thing about Marmol is he walked about six hitters per 9 innings.
Oh,
You never knew he had the best slider I've ever seen, best one I've ever seen. In fact, the late um oh shoot uh gosh, Cardinal outfielder that passed away from brain cancer, Chris Duncan. I knew I'd come to be the late Chris Duncan used to tell a story that he was hitting against Marmol and he swung at that slider and the pitch hit him in the junk. That's how much it broke. So if you swing, and I don't care if you do get hit in the junk, it's a swing.
that's right.
So that's how wicked that slider was, but he couldn't control it. Um, he um, like I said, he walked about 6 per 9 innings, so you never knew what was going to happen. And one of my favorite memories was I was driving for work in central Illinois and I'm listening to the Cub game on my satellite radio, and the feed is from Cincinnati. And um, the Reds radio announcer,
Oh,
gosh, man, I am terrible. I still have a little bit of brain fog from COVID.
yeah.
Hall of Famer.
Marty Hinneman is it?
Yeah. Brenneman. Yeah.
Brenneman.
He said because the Cubs were up and they brought in Marmol in, and he said, "This is the only guy in Major League Baseball. If I was a hitter, I would never bring the bat off my shoulder." And I agreed with him. If I went up to hit, I would think he would have a better chance of throwing 4 balls than 3 strikes. I would not even swing. Not going to hit the slider, first of all, so you're lucky you hit a fastball. But anyway, Marmol closed out the game, and Marty Brennan was just pissed the whole time he's announcing, "Why are they swinging at this? This guy cannot throw the ball over the plate. He shouldn't even be a major league pitcher." It was just completely awesome. So my Mount Rushmore is Lee Smith, Bruce Sutter, Randy Myers, and Carlos Marmol.
That is great. Vince, this is why I love doing this. Everyone knows Smith and Suter, but we're bringing up some of these players, Marmol and Todd Worrell. There's probably a generation of fans out there that don't know hardly anything about Todd
Kind of
Worrell.
forgotten about him.
Yeah, and the
he
Dinkinger
pitched good for the Dodgers in between his stints with the Cardinals too.
Oh yes, he sure did, and he had a nice career. And Marmol, I'll be honest with you, I forgot that name. It kind of slipped out of my mind. You mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah.
Oh, if the plate was my screen here, he could throw the slider and you wouldn't see it, and it could end up out here. It was Google that slider. It was otherworldly. It really was, but he couldn't control it. So.
Couldn't control it. Well, then you can't set on nothing. That's kind of a weapon. If you don't have any control, there is a little bit of a weapon right there where you're uneasy in that batter box,
Oh yeah, especially if it's coming at your junk. So.
That's right.
So. Last week we had a communication mishap.
That was me.
And it may have been my fault because I have been suffering from the brain fog with COVID. So I thought we were doing the Reds. JJ thought we were doing the Pirates. We ended up doing the Reds. So this week I'm going to let JJ take the lead as we look at the last team in our division, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Arr.
Oh, the Pirates.
Hey,
Oh, go ahead.
what's a pirate's favorite letter?
Hey.
Arr. All right,
Oh,
I got
R. I did Fonzie. See, that's it.
Okay.
I'm so uncool. I didn't even figure it out.
This is my favorite pirate joke. Pirate walks into a bar and he's got a steering wheel sticking out of his zipper. And the bartender says, "Hey, I see you have a steering wheel sticking out of your zipper." And the pirate says, "Arg, it's driving me nuts."
Very good. Oh,
And the other pirate jokes I have are just too dirty for a family show. So
very
go ahead.
nice. I love it. Well, Vince, you jump in there anytime. I'm kind of going to talk about the Pirates. They fell in hard times, and that's a great organization. They have a new ballpark. It's pretty much a love letter to Roberto Clemente. He was number 21, and the wall is 21 feet high. They've got the Roberto Clemente Bridge in the background. I've never been there, but everyone I've talked to that's been there absolutely loves that ballpark. And I brought
We
a
are
few
going. Me and Max are going to a game in June on our way to Cooperstown. So
do a
we'll be.
report. We want pictures and a report, man.
Well,
That'd be
yeah,
great.
get you some pictures, some little videos we can post and stuff like
That'd
that.
be nice. Yes, grade the food and everything. Parking's a big thing too. There's some ballparks out there with not very good parking. Well, I've got there's an award. A lot of the great Pirates we think of over the years, Horace Wagner and Willie Stargell, just some Dave Parker, Andrew McCutcheon. There's been a lot of great ones over the years. They've had a lot of success, but they have fell on hard times. But there is an award they give out for the humanitarian in baseball, and a lot of Cardinals have won it. And there's the Yachty Roberto Clemente bobblehead right there. It's a dual bobblehead. It's got the Puerto Rican flag right there and the old style pirate hat. I'll move that down there. I've got the old Slurpee Dave Parker.
The Cobra.
That Cobra, and it's got a where's the
Who
Cobra
should be in the Hall of Fame?
Without a doubt.
That.
That's the Cobra right there. And matter of fact, Pittsburgh used to be known as the city of champions. In the 70s, you had the Steelers winning all the Super Bowls. The Pirates were in the World Series quite a bit in the 70s. And just the lumber company, as they were known, and they used to kick the Cardinals' butt. And then Roberto Clemente, I don't know, you baseball card fans probably know this, but his name is Roberto, but on his baseball cards, they put Bob Clemente. And I think that was a little disrespectful to him. He didn't like it, but they always put Bob Clemente. And the two on the ends are actually kind of remake cards, but this is the actual 1961 Roberto Clemente and the 68 All-Star Roberto Clemente. And I just kind of had them displayed right there. But I'm going to get into their team now. And actually, some of the things they fell on hard times. Last year, they were 62 and 100, and the year before that, 61 and 100. And to be honest,
I love that consistency.
Yeah, yes, very consistent. But they have built up some draft choices. It seems like they're one of those teams when they get a player that looks like he's going to be pretty good, they just can't hang on to all their players. It's sad, but in this game today, the superstars, they're hard to hang on to with the contracts and everything, and you can't hang on to them all. Well, the last time they had a winning year was 2018, and that was just 82 and 79. But they did have a streak in there where they were pretty darn good. They went to the playoffs in 2013, 14, and 15. And in 13, they beat the Reds in the wild card game, but lost to the Cubs. The Cubs won 3 out of 5. In 14, they lost to the Giants that went on to win the World Series that year. And in 15, they lost to the Cardinals in 13. They lost to the Cubs in 15.
In the one game.
Game. Yeah. So not that terribly long ago, they weren't bad, and they had a nice core of players. And this year's team, I tell you what, there is some the Pacoda is this magazine that puts out the projected wins and losses for each team. and Pacoda has them at 67.5. That's the betting rate that you could bet on, that they believe they're going to win basically 68 games this year, which would be 6 games better. And I do, after reading this, I'll give you my prediction on how they're going to do. They have a manager, Derek Shelton, this is his 3rd year, or I'm sorry, this is his 4th year as the manager. And he seems like a real even keel guy. The young players seem to be playing hard for him, and a real likable guy. He paid his dues. He's been a minor league coach on several different organizations, bench coach, and now he's moved up to the Pirates where he's their manager, and seems like a nice guy. Starting with their starting lineup, their catcher is a guy, Austin Hedges, who's 30 years old, and he's defensively pretty good, but offensively he's not much of a threat. And I think we're going to see a lot of the catching may be a thing that we don't see a lot of big hitting catchers anymore, because I just think with the bases being a little closer, I think the running game is going to be more part of the game. And Austin Hedges has been around the league a bit. He's played on several other teams. They got him from Cleveland, and last year he only hit 163, and he's a lifetime 189 hitter, but he does throw out in the 30% of the would-be base stealers. So he's got a good arm, and they can keep, and he's pretty good at picking off people. So that's a plus right there. But he's basically just a defensive player. In the first base position, they have a guy by the name of, I'm not very good with these names, Jai-Man Choi. He's 32, and they picked him up last year. And this guy, basically, he just hit 14 home runs, and he can be a first baseman or a DH. And he's an okay player, but I wish him all the best. But nothing really to write home about. Second base, they have a young kid. He's 23 years old, and they traded, I don't know if you remember, a second baseman named Kevin Newman. That was their second baseman. They ended up trading him away, and they made room for this Rodolfo Castro. He hasn't, and every year he seems to be playing a little bit more. He's hit 224 in the big leagues, and he's got good speed and a decent fielder. And like we said before, with the shifts off, defense is more of a priority at second base. So they brought him in there. Now we're going to get to some of their superstar players, and this is the difference between them and some of the other players. And by the way, they're the second youngest team in baseball. Only the Cleveland Guardians they're the youngest. Then you got the Pirates and then the Royals. Those are the 3 youngest teams in baseball. But they have this kid, O'Neal Cruz. And I looked at his stats, and I thought they were better than they are. The kid is 6'7" and 220 pounds, and he's a shortstop. I've never seen a shortstop that size. He did make 17 errors, but he's only 24 years old. So I think he's only going to get better. He hit the hardest ball last year, exit velocity. It bounced beyond the home run wall and bounced. I think it hit the wall and bounced all the way back into the infield. He is something else. Last year, he hit 17 home runs. He stole 10 bases, and he hit 235. Strikes a little too much, but he is impressive. He's a guy you just go to the ballpark to watch him take batting practice. This guy is a specimen, and I think they're building the team around some of these young players, and he's one of them right there. And he's just 24 years old. My favorite player on this team is their third baseman. It's Hayes, Key Brian Hayes. And I tell you what, defensively, this guy could be an all-star player. I believe he's sort of the captain of the team. This kid is a superstar in the making. He only hit 7 home runs last year. He was dealing with some injuries, but he did still 20 bases. And anyway, I seen him, and there was a game, we played him 3 games. They beat us on a Sunday, and he made like 3 plays that I thought should have been hits, but he
would be the all-star or the Gold Glove third baseman if there wasn't some dude named Avocado in St. Louis.
Yeah, it's a blessing watching that dude. I'll tell you what, every day I'm like, thank you for coming to St. Louis.
Now, didn't the Pirates extend Hayes to a contract?
I think they did. I think they did.
One of them that they've he may be the first one that they've done that to. And I don't know if they've done it to Cruz, but that would be a pretty wise investment too.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, but I'm with you. That's the bloodline of the team, and you want these players, and you build them up, and the fan base. You love these players. You want to come out, you root for them, and you want to keep that kind of nucleus going. And I like it. They got so in the infield, they got these two young players. Well, a second baseman now too, but I don't know anything really about him. But that infield is young. I mean, 26-year-old at third, 24 at short, and 23 at second. As far I think they're going to turn them loose. They can play loosey goosey because the expectations, let's be honest, is pretty low for them. So I think you're going to see a lot of running, a lot of hit and run, a lot of stolen bases, a lot of trying to take that extra base. They have a lot of team speed. It's going to be fun to watch, and they got a good defensive catcher. Now in the outfield, they brought Andrew McCutchen back, one of the all-time great Pirates. He's won an MVP award. He's not the guy that was there before, where he was always in the top 3 for the MVP, but he is a very good player. He is 36 years old, and I think it's good to bring in a veteran to work with the younger players. He was a first-round pick in 2005, and he's got a Gold Glove, and he's been on 4 All-Star teams and 4 Silver Sluggers. And he's been gone for a while, but he is loved in Pittsburgh, and I think that's going to be a draw for them, and he can work with the young guys. What else can you say about McCutchen? Good guy. I always respected him.
Yeah.
Also in the outfield, Brian Reynolds, the switch hitter, and he announced that he wanted to be traded, but the Pirates were wanting the moon and the stars. And I know the Yankees were thinking about getting him. I was hoping he'd come to the Cardinals because, oh my gosh, this kid's a superstar. But I heard he only has 1 more year on his contract. It's tough to get a lot of prospects when you're only going to get the guy for 1 year. But
yeah,
he's going to stick around. I mean, he's got to. He's under contract with him. I don't know if he'll be back next year, but it'll be fun to watch. And he's only 28 years old. He's so talented. He's 28 years old. And I'll be honest with you, if he came here, I don't know. We don't know nothing about Walker, but he might be the best outfielder on the Cardinals if he came here. To be honest with you, from defensive standpoint, and hitting and everything, he's a top-notch player right there. And finally, in the outfield, we also have they traded for a Colorado Rocky, Connor Joe, and he's 30 years old, and he's an all right player. I see him as like a 4th outfielder, and a young kid, 26. I can't say his last name, Jack Savinsky, I believe it is. He's 26, another young Pirate player, and they traded for a DH who could also play first, Carlos Santana. And I was looking at Carlos's stats in the last 2 years. He's been on the decline, but that guy can hit. He was with Kansas City last year, and he played pretty good. And he got traded at the deadline, and for a team's pennant drive. He may be one of those types of guys, but he is a respectable hitter. But his stats have been kind of on the decline of late. I think when Nelson Cruz started having those MVP or All-Star years at 39 and 40, people started looking at like the Carlos Santana's. Maybe their career could be, or their top years would still be ahead of them. So that is their hitting. And to be honest with you, I just think it's inconsistent, and they don't have much of a bench. But there is some players that are going to be fun to watch on that team this year. Any thoughts on their hitting, Vince?
Yeah, a couple. The O'Neill Cruz started horribly. And he only played in 87 games. He had a terrible start, but they kept him there, and he got better as the year went on. He finished with an OPS of 744. For a rookie shortstop who only hit 233. He gave you 17 home runs in about a half a season. So you're looking at someone who would have hit 30 home runs his rookie season. Probably would have driven in, probably would have led the team in RBIs, because the team leader in RBIs was Reynolds with only 62. So his defense is something that he's going to have to work on, but sometimes offense and defense go hand in foot. As the offense gets better, you relax defensively, you don't worry about hitting, so you're going to be a better defender. And a 6'7" shortstop always intrigues me, but he was on a pace to strike out 200 times if he had a full season, which is concerning. But there are some teams that don't care about that anymore, so whatever. Key Brian Hayes had a terrible year offensively, dealing with injuries. He's a better player than that, and I look for him to bounce back and be one of the team leaders. And Brian Reynolds is a good player. I think he's a little overrated. He hit 262. He did hit 27 home runs, drove in 62. He's a good outfielder. But he's a big fish in a small pond, I guess you could say. And when he forced Pittsburgh to put him on the market, and I think that was kind of humbling. I'm really not in that much demand right now. He's a good outfielder for a good team to have who needs a piece, but I think he's proven in Pittsburgh he's just not the guy to carry a team. So I like the guy as a player, but he had an 807 OPS, which is good, but that's not all-star center fielder type stuff. That's very good. It is all-star level, but it's very good. It's just not great. But the rest of the team, I don't know who the heck they are. So anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. They're so young. Are guys that we're like an extra player on other teams. And then Andrew McCutchen came back and Austin Hedges. So they're not name brand guys, but I do think they're going in the right direction. Looking over the rosters the last few years, a lot of these guys are getting a little more under their belts. And so anyway, I do think they're going in the right direction. And it's going to be a fun team to watch. And I kind of pull for Pittsburgh to do good because of that, the fans, and they just haven't been so good here lately. But their pitching, that's the other thing. This kind of separates a lot of the teams is their bullpens and their pitching. I think bullpen is so valuable now. Their bullpen is not going to scare you. They have a lot of guys that were cast off from other teams, but they're starting five. Here's a starting five. Mitch Keller, he's 26 years old, and he was 5-12 last year. But again, that's a bad team. And he had a 3.91 ERA, 138 strikeouts, and 159 innings and 60 walks. So he's, his consistency is not very consistent, but he does have a good arm, and he's pitched all 4 years with the Pirates. So they are bringing up these players that the fans can identify with. They have a guy named Rosie Contreras. He's 23. He's been 2 years with the Pirates. He's 5-5 with 3.79 ERA.
He's pitching in the World Baseball Classic. I just saw him the other day.
Oh, how do you look? Oh, okay.
He threw well. Yeah, he threw well. He started, was it for Dominican Republic? I think Dominican Republic. But he pitched good. Yeah.
Well, and he's a young guy. Again, this team's just loaded with young guys.
22, so yeah.
And I tell you what, the third starter, this guy I like, but he's always hurt. Rich Hill. He's 42 years old, young, 42 years young, Vince. It gives hope for me and you. Maybe we can warm them arms up. The Pirates may be calling us. He was 8-7 last year, but he only threw 124 innings. And it seemed like when he got in his late 30s, he started having his body kind of was breaking down. And he's just, at times he looks great, but he just can't stay healthy. He had a 4.27 ERA. He's still in the league. He's still going at it. But he's one of the old.
Did he pitch for the Red Sox last year?
Boston, yes, he did.
Yeah, and before that, when he was with the Dodgers, they'd only let him go through the lineup twice. And Boston also only let him go through the lineup twice. So he's not racking up a lot of innings. He's basically a 5-inning pitcher now.
He's played for 11 teams, Vince. He's going to have like one of those Gaylord Perry jerseys where he's got like all the team emblems on there.
Yeah, I remember I was 9 years old when he made his first start for the Cubs.
Well, then they got a kid. He's 29 years old, and I think that's about your prime years. There's a kid, JT Brubaker, 3 years, all with the Pirates. He was 3-12 last year, and you know when your team only wins 60 games, I mean, you get a lot of records like that. A 4.68 ERA, 144 innings. He had 147 strikeouts in 144 innings. That's a little something. And their final starter is Vince Vasquez. He's 30 years old, and he's been in the minor league. He was in the minor leagues for a long time, and last year he was just 3-3, and he was really a long reliever who got an occasional start last year. And their setup man is a man named Stevenson. I can't tell you a whole lot about him. And Belnar is their closer. And Vince, I look at these teams and I'm like, they don't scare you. And I know they're putting these teams out, but if they get any injuries, there's a big drop off to the next level and the next level. And my grandpa always used to say, you can separate the good teams and the bad teams. July is what happens, because these young teams will play their young guys to death, and they'll start getting tired around July when the heat comes. And that's just the thing. I just see there's 67 wins, 68. I can see them doing that. I see them being fourth place in our division. The Reds last, the Pirates. That's sad, the Pirates over the Reds, but that's how I see it. And Vince, I think I'm a Cardinal fan. I'll say Cardinals, even when it's obvious we're not the front runner. But I really think the Cubs have a shot at catching the Brewers this year, especially if they have some pitching problems and Burns doesn't stick around the whole year. I can see the Cubs going in there and getting a spot, man. This could be fun.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. How do you see the Reds or the Pirates doing this year?
I see them battling for the basement with the Reds. I think at best an 80. They're going to lose 88 to 95 games. The pitching staff with Brubaker's the only strikeout pitcher they got. He averages about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. The rest of them are well under. So there's going to be a lot of contact, which is where you're going to have, the defense of Brian Hayes is premier. O'Neill Cruz is going to have to be better at short. Otherwise, it can be disastrous. And I would imagine that the second baseman they have now is a really good glove person, because they do know that they do have a lot of pitchers who are going to be pitching to contact. The ball's going to be in play a lot. And I don't know. Let me get to it. I don't know much about Connor Joe, him defensively. But I do know that Reynolds is I wouldn't say a top notch, but he's a very good defensive center fielder. And in right, I'm not sure what they got there too. I see them as kind of like building, kind of how the Cubs are, get pitching that's going to pitch to contact and try to catch the ball better. They just don't have, excuse me, they just don't have the pieces that the Cubs have to catch the ball right now. And that's because they don't have the money to go out and get a Dansby Swanson, a Cody Bellinger. So they're kind of at a disadvantage there, financially. So I do think what the Cardinals and Cubs and Brewers are going to have to do is they're going to have to win 9, 10, 11 games against each one of these. They're going to have to really feast on these teams, because with the balanced schedule, they're going to be playing more of the American League teams that are better. They're not going to be playing like just the Central teams and, a few here and there. So there's a lot of wins to be had within the division. That's what I'm saying for the top 3 teams, and they've got to take advantage of that. And I think that the Pirates are in for a long year, but I think they are getting a little bit better because with Brian Hayes, O'Neill Cruz, Brian Reynolds, there's some definite talent that they're putting on the diamond now. And Brubaker, I think, is a pretty decent pitcher pitching on a bad team. And when you look at some of these Pirate pitchers that they've had when they've went off, their careers just taken off. Jameson Tyone, Oh, who's the other?
Garrett
Yeah,
Cole was
Garrett Cole. But Garrett Cole was really good with the Pirates. But once
yeah.
Garrett Cole went to Houston and went through their pitch lab, he got otherworldly. Um, and who's the other guy? Tyler Glasnow started
Oh
in
yeah.
Pittsburgh,
He's
and
great.
I remember when the Pirates were making the playoffs there in the mid 2010s. Their bullpen was so good they called it the Shark Tank because they all threw hard. They all had, and I wonder what has happened with that kind of pitching development. How did that fall off the table? Because one thing that we've learned with Houston, with the Cardinals, with other teams, if you can develop pitching, you always got a shot. And it seemed like the Pirates had figured out how to develop pitching, and then suddenly it fell apart. Could be because in those mid 2000s, when they were good, they were getting lower draft picks and they weren't getting the Garrett Coles and the Jamison Tyomes in the draft anymore. And they couldn't develop pitchers who didn't quite have that talent, maybe quite that much talent. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it's gonna be a long year in Pittsburgh. It's gonna be a long year in Cincinnati. And message to the Cardinals, Cubs, and Brewers: you better feast up on those teams. You really, really need to. JJ, this is the last pack of baseball cards I own, so I have to go out and get some more, or get on.
Can I make a quick announcement?
No,
we're gonna please, we're gonna have our third contest. And it's just like the second one. It's who can it be now? Every week I'll be giving some clues, and you can contact Vince or me, and you get one guess a week. And each week you can't, and so then that'll eliminate that guy if you don't get him. But it's gonna be fun. And I will say this: it's going to be a Cardinal this time who played from 1970 to 2022. And he's going to be a player that the average fan would know. So it's not going to be some obscure fourth outfielder or a middle reliever.
BB Richards.
Oh my gosh, BB Richards. I have forgot that name. Yes. I can't think of a Cub guy that I was going to throw.
Rick Bostetti.
Oh man. Vic Harris? No, it won't be any of those guys. None of those. So it'll be a named guy. So this is the clue this first week. And the prize is a 2014 Michael Walker bobblehead where he won the National League Championship Series MVP. So he's holding that trophy, the bobblehead. So we'll be sending that to you for the winner. And last time it went quick. We had it was the Cubs, and we only got to 2 weeks, and somebody guessed the prize was a Don Kessinger. But it was, Sean Dunston was the answer. And it only went 2 weeks and we got somebody answer. Brandon Schmidt answered Sean Dunston and he got it right. So this is the clue this week. It's a St. Louis Cardinal, played from 70 to 2022, and it's a hitter. All right. And it's a player of note. So that's your clue the first week. And Vince knows who it is. I know who it is. So start sending in your guesses. And next week, if no one's guessed, I'll give you your second clue. So anyway, that was my announcement, our third contest right there.
You said it wasn't BB Richards. That's who I thought it was.
Good guess.
BB Richards?
Not BB Richards. Not BB.
Wow.
I forgot about him. But you know them all. I could throw out like Roger Freed. You know who Roger Freed is. Me and you and about 100 other people. That's about it. So your last pack, you're down to your last pack.
My last pack, yes. It is. It is the 2002 Topps.
Oh, yes. It's a heritage one.
I'll go ahead and...
Well, you're opening. I'll just show the one I'm opening. I'm opening the 2002 Fleer Triple Crown set. It looks like that right there.
Ah.
So that's mine this time.
Okay. I can already tell this is going to be a great pack.
Oh, you got the vibe.
Yeah.
The pack vibe.
Third baseman for the Oakland Athletics, Kevin Smith. And if you haven't seen his movie Clerks, you are missing a great movie.
He was thinner when he was in the league.
What's that?
He was thinner when he played in the league. Yeah.
Hey, I just saw Kevin Smith a few months ago at the pageant. They had a Clerks 3 screening, and then afterwards he did the question and answer thing.
He's a
He's
great
dropped
talker.
like 120 pounds. It's amazing.
He could only wear hockey jerseys there for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the first time I saw him was I think 2010 or 11. My daughter and her friend and I went to Kansas City to watch his routine, and he was still quite heavy at that time. And yeah, it was like looking at a different person. Okay. Anyway, enough about Kevin Smith. Outfielder Chas McCormick.
Oh yes, that catch. Oh yeah, he made that catch in the World Series.
I have trouble pronouncing this guy's name because there's too many. Plays for shortstop for the Yankees, and I think they're trying to push him out because they keep talking about these great young players coming up. But Isaiah Kiner Falefa.
Oh yes, he was a Ranger not terribly long ago, and
Yeah,
they ended up signing Corey Seager and
Marcus Simeon.
there was three shortstops. He was going to move to third, but then they ended up trading him to the Yanks.
Uh, Here's an old guy. Well, not that old. His wife is very attractive. I
Oh,
shouldn't say that, but
hey.
I don't like sit around and have celebrity crushes, but I've always liked his wife. She's always like, "Ooh, yeah, that seems like a sweet, nice, pretty lady." But anyway, he played for the Red Sox and was great. Got traded to the Cubs and was injured. Then we gave him to the Dodgers. Nomar Garcia Parra,
Oh, his wife was a soccer player.
Mia Hamm. Yep,
Mia
Mia.
Hamm, that's right.
Oh, one of the greatest third basemen ever. We're going into the Wayback Machine from the Milwaukee Braves, Eddie Matthews, Hall of Famer.
Oh, yes, great player.
Well, look who I got.
Hey, hey.
Major League debut, April 7, 2022. World Series MVP, Jeremy Pena.
Jeremy Pena. Hey, right there.
Yeah.
Pena, a great season, great postseason.
And here's a player who's had some really good years for Oakland, then went to the Yankees, the Reds, and the Twins. Sonny Gray,
Sonny
very good
Gray.
pitcher. And finally, we have from the gosh, they've been called the California Angels forever, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Um, the guy who's doing his Jason Worth impression of a caveman. Here we go.
Oh,
Greg
yeah.
Marsh.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Very good.
And that's my package.
That's your package? All right. Well, Vince, if I may say so, very nice package. All right. Yes. But up bump.
You.
All right. Well, this is what these cards look like. These are Flair pace setters. And remember, this is 2002. And this is Larry Walker with the Rockies right there. A Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And it was an honor having him on the Cardinals for a few years. This is also looks like it's the Rockies as well. But Mike Hampton, I always think of him, the pitcher Mike Hampton. I always think of him as a Houston Astro.
There is, there's a YouTube video, and what this guy does is he breaks down contracts, and his formula is their WAR versus what their contract paid them out. And he's in this video there, it's the 10 worst contracts based upon that. Mike Hampton's on that list. I think they paid his WAR. I don't remember the formula, but yeah, he went to Colorado, and they overpaid him. But he was a breaking ball pitcher, and the ball just doesn't break in Colorado, and he just got smoked there. And I great hitting pitcher too, one of the best hitting pitchers of all time. But yeah, I really felt sorry for him, signing that big contract and then going out there and realizing my stuff doesn't play here. But
The
a lot
rock,
of pitchers
a
found that
lot of
out.
the a lot of free agent pitchers don't go to the
They
Rockies
don't.
because
Yeah.
of that. and they have to overpay for the talent they do get. So my next card, I always thought this guy was an incredible player. He was just a man child, but Manny Ramirez, he could hit. He could hit. He was kind of a wild thing. And I remember, I think it was the '04 World Series. Would that have been it? Yeah, the '04 World Series. He said something, and Yachty, who was a rookie, took his mask off and got in his face. I said, and like Manny was like, "Who is this guy? I don't even know who this guy is." And I was like, "Ooh, man, Yachty's got some spunk to him, you know." This guy here, he looked like he was going to be a superstar early in his career, and he had a nice career, but he made a lot of money. Alfonso Soriano,
Former Cub.
oh yeah, and he there he is, I believe, with the Yankees. And a famous brewer, Jeff Jenkins.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, got a swing going on. They got them in silver, so they're kind of hard to read. Oh yes, this, and it's with the Cubs, but I don't recognize the Cubs have orange jersey. Moises Alou right there.
They were more red. I do have that red jersey somewhere in my deal. I'll have to dig it out. And it said Cubs in blue across it. It looked like Cuba. But I used to wear that red Cub jersey to Cardinal Cub games, and people would oh man, that's a Cub jersey.
You caught them off guard. I didn't know.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember them having orange jerseys, but very cool. This player I always liked. He was an Oakland A. He played on several teams. He was a Kansas City Royal, but Jermaine Dye, a very nice outfielder, had a nice career. Matter of fact,
yeah.
Do you remember when it was Dye, Johnny Damon, and Carlos Beltran was the Kansas City Royals outfield? What a young, and they were young too back then. I always thought this guy kind of reminded me of Tim Anderson. He was a short, stocky player. Played with a lot of grit, but and he also was a White Sox. Ray Durham, very nice player. Tim Anderson's a more heralded player, but Ray Durham had a very nice career. Was a good player and played for quite a few years.
Yeah, if you ever read the book Moneyball, Durham, his thing was he stole bases. Then they traded him to Oakland, and under the Moneyball's way of playing baseball, you don't steal bases, you don't give outs. And so Durham absolutely hated his time in Oakland, and why they traded for him, I don't know. But
yeah,
you know, when you're a base stealer and you go to a team that says, "Oh, by the way, we don't steal bases here."
Right. So he got out of there as soon as he could, probably.
Yeah, I think he went to Detroit after that.
He had a nice long career and was a good player, but after he left the Sox, I kind of lost track of him there. And the last player is Toronto Blue Jay Shannon Stewart, who was a solid player. Very nice player. He's in a retro outfit right there, but a very good player. And that's my set right there of cards for this week.
Okay, well, next week on our show, what we will do is we will both do some research and find out Cardinals and Cubs who have been on TV / in movies, which will be interesting. And we'll absolutely look at how things are progressing with the World Baseball Classic and spring training. And JJ, you got any big plans this week?
I'm off this week, and I'm going to do a little research on a remote possibility coming up soon. And Vince, can we throw in music? Because there's been some players that did music as well. Could I throw in, besides TV and movies, could we do music? Because if I can find an album, I'm going to try to read some of their titles of their songs off. That might be pretty funny.
Sure. Sounds great. Well, JJ, you have a great week. It's been great again. And everybody, we hope to see you in our next episode, which will drop in a week. Thank you for joining us.
Take care.